Hey, our ALT Academy students, happy Wednesday. It's April 22nd. Mr. Jason here. So glad that you guys are all watching through our Academy Facebook page and different venues like that. We have an exciting day today. I hope everyone, first of all, is staying safe. Huge shout out and thank you again for those of you who decorated outside our theater this past week and left the notes and the sidewalk chalk and all that stuff. It has given us so much inspiration this week, and we love and appreciate you guys so much. I'm so excited today. I like today, called today Wednesday Matinee Q&A Day with Mr. Jason. We're so excited. We are so blessed, guys. We have the amazing Tony-nominated Anika Larsen here with us today. She is going to do a great Q&A with us. While you guys are watching, we have some of you, of course, that are going to ask their questions live. But as you guys are watching, ask your question in the comment section below. Just type in your question. We'll try to get to your questions later in the broadcast when we go to the Q&A section. So be sure to ask your question below, all that good stuff, and we will try to get to that when we can. Like I said, guys, we're so excited that Anika Larsen has graciously devoted an hour of time with us today. And so without further ado, I'm going to bring in Miss Anika Larsen. Hey, Anika, how are you doing today?
Hi, guys. I'm great. I'm happy to be with you.
You look fantastic. Thank you again for being a part of this Q&A with us. In fact, I didn't get to tell you this beforehand, but we just we've been trying to do a lot of online classes and putting out there some dance lessons and Zoom meetings and different things like that. We just had to do our announcement about an hour ago that we had to postpone our summer show. We were supposed to be doing Newsies this summer that we had to postpone, so we just made that announcement. We have a production of Anne and Green Gables that was a week away from opening, and it's still kind of in a holding pattern. So our kids are just jumping at the bit to do something creative, and so we appreciate that you agreed to do this Q&A session with us today.
Well, all of you guys out there who are dealing with some disappointment right now, you can think of it as part of your training to be a professional actor, because there's lots of disappointment in the business. So you're being super professional right now with having to deal with this.
True, very true, very true. I love that. I love that. And as people are watching, I've already seen some comments. Yes, Academy parents, alumni, anyone who has a question, definitely ask away, and we'll try to get to that later in the broadcast. So Anika, first off, can I ask where are you and your family? Are you guys doing okay?
We're great. We're at home. We live in the suburbs of New York City, and so fortunately for us, I don't know how people are doing this in an apartment in Manhattan with if you have kids, because I have two little boys who are 4 and 3, and so we have space and we have a trampoline. I think that trampoline alone is going to get us through this time, because at 4 and 3, their default setting is bounce. So
sure. Yeah, for sure.
We put them in there, we zip them in, and they bounce for literally hours.
I love it.
So we're good. We're safe. We're healthy. We're staying self-isolated. It's definitely a hub of coronavirus up here. There's a lot of it. So we're all being real smart and real safe. Flatten the curve.
Yeah, same here in Amarillo. We have a slogan, all in Amarillo, where everyone is definitely staying home. Have you ever been to Amarillo?
I have not. I have toured through Texas a bunch of times, different cities, but the ones you'd expect, Dallas and Fort Worth and Houston and Austin and San Antonio.
Gotcha.
That's it. Yeah.
Well, our community theater, we were established in 1927. So we are one of the oldest continuously running theaters. And then our academy here, we have almost 700 students in our academy, age range from 3 all the way to high school, tons of different classes with vocal, dance class, acting classes. I know most of our musical theater kids are tuning in right now and watching, and we would love to hear, your story, your how you became where you are in your career path and how you got here.
Sure. Well, I have 9 brothers and sisters, and 6 of them are adopted from all over the world, different races and countries. So when I was growing up, my family was like a little bit famous in our town. Like everybody knew the Larsen family, but they didn't know my name, because I was one of the Larsens. Because with 10 kids, like, how do you learn all their names? You don't. You just don't. So no, I wanted everybody to know Anika, and I was desperate for attention. And when I figured out when I was maybe 4 or 5 years old that I could get attention by singing, I kept doing it louder and louder and louder. And my parents would have a Christmas party every year. And my mom thought we were the multicultural Von Trapp family. If you've ever seen that kind of music, you know how they sang at the party that they threw at the house. So my mom every year would have us perform at the Christmas party, and we would do like group numbers and duets and trios, but I always got a big fat solo, and I was more excited about that solo than Christmas presents. October, I would start thinking about like talking with my mom about what should be my song this year. And so that's really where I got the bug for performing, and really where I started to love singing in front of people. And Annie, the musical Annie, was huge at that time. And I wanted to sound like Annie. I wanted to belt like Annie. And Whitney Houston was huge when I was young. So I wanted to sound like if Whitney Houston and Annie had a baby. I have spent my life trying to sound like that baby. And so my father is the only one in my family who actually likes theater outside of like stuff. The rest of my family comes to theater I'm in because they have to. But my father also just loves theater and sees theater that I'm not in. And he told me once that at any show that toured, I'm from Boston or just outside of Boston. He said, any show that tours through Boston, if you want to go see it, I'll take you. And so we would ride the T, which is what we call the subway in Boston, into the city, and we would go see a play, a musical usually, and then ride all the way home. And we would talk about it all the way there and all the way back. And it's really maybe the most magical memories of my childhood, partly because it was fostering my love for musical theater, but also it was one-on-one time with my dad, which when there's 10 kids, that's hard to come by. So I really, through all of those times, really started to obsess about musicals. And by the time I was in high school and I saw Les Mis when it came through town,
Sure.
just hooked. And but I was scared. My high school had a really great drama program, and they were so good, and I was really intimidated by how good they were when I was a freshman. And so I chickened out and I didn't audition for anything. And then my father finally said, Anika, you got to take drama class. Just take drama class. And then maybe you'll start feeling more comfortable in that crowd. And I did my sophomore year. And then I just started doing theater throughout high school and really, again, just really loving it. I always knew I could sing and I felt comfortable singing in front of people, but I really felt uncomfortable acting. And I just knew I often just didn't feel right on stage, and I didn't know how to fix it. So I just thought, well, I don't want to do it then. But then through doing those plays, I started to feel a little bit more confident. So I thought, well, I want to go to a college with a good theater program. And I knew Yale had a great theater program. So I applied early to Yale, very, very fortunately for me. So I only had to apply to one school. And I found out early that I was going to go there. And then I went to Yale and I majored in theater. And that's where I first took acting lessons, like actual acting classes, and was delighted to discover that there are actually tools out there that people can teach you to help you be a better actor, and to deal with those times where you don't feel like you're being honest on stage. And I realized that all of the times I was uncomfortable was when I just felt like I wasn't being sincere or honest or true, like I could feel myself acting.
Sure.
And so I took classes and started to really learn how to deal with that. So that gave me the confidence to go to New York City and try, because I was always very pragmatic. I always had a sense of like, I know how hard the business is. Everybody talks about how hard it is to be an actor. And why would I be lucky enough to win the lottery and be able to do the thing I love to do for a living on Broadway? But I also knew that one of the worst things in the world is to feel regret, is to wonder what if I had tried. And so I thought it would be worse to say what if than to try and fail. So I decided to move to New York City. I went home for a year after college to wait tables and save up money. So I was scared to move straight to New York without a little bit of a savings. And then I moved to New York and I just started auditioning for anything and everything I could. It's different nowadays because that was the fall of 1996. And so we didn't have the internet back then like we do now. And so now people go online to find out about auditions. But back then I had to go to a newsstand once a week and buy a paper called Backstage. Yeah. And in the back was listings for all of the open calls for people who didn't have agents and weren't in the union like me. Nowadays, Backstage.com still lists auditions. And there's another place I should find out I think it's called the Actors Connection. But there are other places. I'm sure a Google search would help you find that. But so I just, anything that I was even remotely right for, and this is something I would suggest for people out there who are thinking about starting, is I auditioned for anything and everything I could, even stuff I wasn't super interested in, because it was easier to audition for stuff I didn't really want very much. Then I didn't get so nervous. And the more you do it, the better you get at it. It's like a workout. Like the more you work that muscle, the stronger it gets. And the less you work at it, the more it atrophies. And being part of being a professional actor is being a professional auditioner. So when you're not working, that's your job, is auditioning. And so you've got to get good at it. And so
I love that professional auditioner line. That's brilliant.
yeah, yeah. And so the more you do, if you go to 10 auditions in 1 week, how much can any one of them matter to you?
Right.
If you go to 2 in a month, they matter too much, and you get too scared. Your nerves take over too much, and it just makes your life too much harder, and you don't get better at doing them. So I auditioned for anything and everything I could. Also, importantly, casting agents who see all of these people and sort of sort through the thousands and thousands of actors in New York City, and then decide to give callbacks to the ones that they think they're interested in, and then present the ones to the director and the producers that they think would be right. Those people, you want them to know about you. So even if you're not right for what they're casting, you might be right for something else that they know about. I definitely have a clear memory of walking into a room and him looking at me before I even started and saying, "You're not right for this, but you might be right for this other thing that I'm casting. Go ahead and sing." And then I ended up auditioning for that other thing and booking it. So, so I did that for about a year and a half, and then I got a call on a Tuesday. Oh, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, during that time period, were you working as well?
Oh, yeah, for sure. I was nannying and babysitting has always been the after school job when I was younger, and then the day job that I did most of the time. But I also was a temp, which is like a temporary office worker. You can take assignments that are like 1 day or 3 days or a week or 2 weeks, but you're like a temporary office worker who just, sometimes you're the receptionist, sometimes you file things. But so I did that quite a bit too. Sometimes there's the place called the Jacob Javits Center. It's a convention center, and they have conventions every week, and they just need people to, like, you walk in and people point you in the right direction. Like, so there's lots of ways that you can find temporary work that can sort of be flexible around an actor's life. I mean, everyone in New York City knows there's thousands of actors who need part-time work.
Sure.
So there's lots of places that are flexible like that. And then I was in one of my temp jobs in an office one day, and I got a call from the musical Rent. And they said, "We would like you to be in our LA company of Rent on Friday." It was a Tuesday. On Friday, to be on stage the following Friday. Somebody had to leave for medical reasons, and they needed an emergency replacement. And it was good news for me was I knew the show backwards and forwards. I loved it when I was in college, and I went to see it on Broadway, and I just thought, I could never be that good. Just that original cast, I just watched them and thought, they are so talented. I could never do that. And then here I was being offered this job, and a week to learn it. The good news was I had worn out that double cassette tape, because there were double cassette tape times back then. So I knew all the lyrics and all the music. But of course I said yes, absolutely. And so I, figured out in 3 days how to pack up my life and sublet my room in my apartment. I had 4 roommates in a little apartment in the Upper West Side. And I flew out to LA and did that. I played one of the ensemble women, and I understudied Maureen.
Right.
And then that LA company turned into the second national tour, and they asked me to come along as a swing. A swing is an understudy who is off stage unless somebody is injured or out sick or at a wedding or on vacation, and then they'll go on, and they always cover more than one part. So the idea is you're called a swing because you swing from part to part.
Sure.
And so swings, I covered 4 parts. I've heard of swings covering 7, 8, and 9 parts. Usually they're like the chorus members, the dancers, and so it's really hard. Like, it'll be a male dancer who covers like 8 dancers who all do basically the same dance, but like in slightly different places, slightly different ways, which I don't know how they do that. But I was a swing on that for over a year. I toured the country. That's when I went to a lot of those cities in Texas.
Yeah, and I think I have some photos of you from Rent.
Oh, ooh, yeah, that's Maureen in the cat suit. And that was my ensemble part, Mrs. Cohen and others.
I love it. That's fantastic.
Yeah,
for your first big experience to be a part of, I bet that was such a touching show for you.
It was so thrilling. First of all, I learned so much. It was my first real professional job. I joined the union to do that job. So just learning about unions and about contracts and about agents and about how never mind the sort of professionalism and protocols on stage and off stage, the etiquette, how it all works. I learned a tremendous amount in that year and a half, like more than I've probably learned in any other year and a half in my life, in terms of how much I learned that really serves me even today, doing what I do for a living. Yeah, so exciting. Also, Rent was the cool. It was like the Hamilton of that time. It was the cool
Yes.
musical in town. Everywhere we went, we were a big deal, and people were very excited about us. So we had in every city, you had a big opening night party, and so people were throwing parties for us every 2 weeks, and it was super fun. And getting to see the country. I mean, I was young and I didn't have a home to worry about paying for, and I didn't have kids to worry about taking care of. So traveling the country with amazingly talented people, doing this thing I love to do, and seeing the world. I mean, I can't remember how many states I went to, but I've seen so much of America because of that. And then I did 2 other tours for shorter times after that. But yeah, it's a really extraordinary thing to do. I often felt like it's so weird. I was like, I know this is real life, but it doesn't feel like real life. It feels like you're on perpetual vacation, but you're getting older. Time is passing. The thing about tours is the reason that most people do tours is because it's the best way for people in theater to save money. Because when you're on tour, you make your salary, which is the same base salary as a Broadway show, but you get per diem, which is a thing that all companies offer in some form. If your boss asks you to travel for work, they'll give you a per diem, which means per day in Latin, and it's an amount of money that they give you per day, although ours was per week, and to pay for your food and your shelter. So for your hotels or your food, your boss will give you per diem. So our union had negotiated that the producers would have to pay a per diem for us every week. And if you were smart with your money, you could easily live off your per diem. So then your salary went straight to the bank.
Wow.
So I know lots of people who bought a New York City apartment because they were on tour for a few years and came back home. And yeah, so it's really one of the few ways that just everyday actors can make enough money to really save up some money. So it was an extraordinary experience. And then I came back to New York and they asked me to be a vacation swing in the Broadway company. So just for 2 months, they had a lot of people who were leaving for different reasons, for vacations and stuff. And they just needed extra help in the building because every part in a Broadway show, every character you see on stage has at least 2 understudies. One is not enough because what happens if one of them goes on vacation and then there's only one person left in the building who knows how to do it? That's just not enough coverage. What if they break their ankle? What if they're sick? What if something happens? So every part has 2 understudies, whether it's an understudy who's a swing off stage or it's an understudy who's in the ensemble who understudies a lead. So I did that for 2 months and then I looked around and I was like, all right, I'm a Broadway actor. Who wants to hire me next? Crickets. For 2 years.
Oh, 2 years.
2 years. I didn't work again in theater in a way that paid me enough money to live, or even close to it. I still did do lots of small theater projects, and I so encourage people who are early career, say yes to anything you're offered because first of all, every experience is like taking a class for free. And every director is like a teacher, whether they're good or bad. You'll learn a lot from them. And then the relationships you form with those people. So many of those people will go on to have careers in the theater, whether they're doing what they were, they might be acting in that play and then eventually be a producer or a director or a marketing person or whatever. But they'll remember you. And if you were great to work with, they'll remember you and suggest you for stuff later on in your life. Or they just might be a really great friend that you still have 20 years later, So it really is about building community in this city. It's the theater community is a very small village within this giant, there's 9 million people, I think, in New York City. And then there's this small village of theater people who all really know each other and are accountable to each other. And it's karma works. Like if you're not good to people, it gets around and it gets back to you. And we all know, every one of you watching, how collaborative it is, right? How much it's a group effort. An author can go out into the woods to a cabin and write a book and come away with a book. But it takes at least 75 people to make a Broadway musical, at least. And so if you're not good at playing well with others, if you're not a good team player, you're just not going to keep getting hired. And so the nice thing about that is that really, for the most part, people on Broadway are nice. People at Broadway are kind, even the ones in positions of power, because they know, I know you guys know, if you've had a teacher or a mentor or a parent, anybody, if they're being kind to you, they get the best out of you, right? Somebody's yelling at you, it doesn't bring out your best work. It doesn't get your best work. It just doesn't. And especially in a world where what we're asked to do is sort of bare our souls, if you're not in a room that's kind and loving and safe, then you're just not going to do as well. So everybody knows that. So, nobody, directors, music directors, choreographers, producers, none of them do people keep working with if they're not kind. And of course, there's always exceptions. But when I see on TV or film when people are like, the director is being terrible to somebody, I'm like, it's so rare. It's just so rare. It's almost never like that. So anyway, so I didn't work. And in that time, of course, I was working day jobs and stuff. And then after that, the next job that I had that was like able to live on was an off-Broadway musical called Xana Don't, which is wonderful. And if it's the last album, we recorded it. It's out there. You can listen to it. It's a delightful musical.
I love Xana Don't. I think, there's not many people who know that show. And when it came out, I loved Xana Don't.
So good. It's so good. It only ran for like 3 months off Broadway. They wanted
Jay Rodriguez in that with you?
Who?
Jay Rodriguez was a part of that. That's what I thought. I think that's how I knew about that show. Yeah.
Yeah. So very few people actually saw it, except everybody in the industry. It was sort of the talk of the town. So it definitely led to my next 2 Broadway shows, doing that show, even though it paid so little that it barely paid my rent. It was such a wonderful experience. But I remember one day coming out of the stage door and a woman saying to me, "You're fantastic. Your next step is Broadway." And I remember thinking, I'm sure I said something kind, like, "Thank you very much." But I remember thinking 2 things. A, I don't think you've read my bio in the program, because if you had, you'll know my last step was Broadway. I've been on Broadway. And B, that's just not how it works. I think a lot of people think that when you're like working your way up in the Broadway, in the theater world, it's like a ladder or it's like a stair step. And I think of it a lot more over time. I've come to think of it as, you guys, when you're watching the news with your parents and they have a graph showing the stock market and it goes up and it goes down and up and down and then a little middle and up and down and up and down and up and down. And it always kind of moves generally upward, but it's, you never know where it's going to go. And there's big highs and there's big lows. And the highs may be highs because you're getting paid a lot of money, or they may be highs because it's such a good experience and it's a great play, or it's a great part or great people. And the lows may be lows because you haven't worked in a really long time and you think you're never going to work again. And in the middle, it might just be, yeah, it's a fine job. I need it to keep my health insurance. And that's the life. And so really that's been for over 20 years now, that's been my life. It's like the NASDAQ of theater, is just riding that wave, and some great experiences and some not great experiences, mostly wonderful. And then the reality, the like hard, the stresses and the anxieties of not knowing when the next job is going to come and how I'm going to keep my health insurance, and losing parts I thought I had, losing parts I did have, but I guess for the most part it's been wonderful and rewarding enough that I've stayed in it. I don't know anyone out there who hasn't had a moment of wanting to quit. And for a lot of us, I think it's just that we can't think of an exit strategy, like literally what else we do.
Yeah.
And then about 6 years ago, I did a musical called Beautiful, the Carole King musical. And I was super proud of that because I was part of all of the developmental workshops along the way as they were creating the show. They would do these workshops to work on them in a rehearsal room. And so I really helped to create the character that I played, Cynthia Weil. But there she is. Atta girl. Yeah, there it is. Oh, that was good times. Oh, hey. Sit down, kids. But the best thing about that experience was that if you guys know what a dresser is, that's the person who helps you. It's part of the wardrobe department, is made of dressers who take care of all of the costumes and then help you with your quick changes backstage. And so I guess I had complained about my love life one too many times to my dresser. And one day she said, "Would you like to be set up on a blind date with a trumpet player named Freddie?" And I said, "I have never turned away opportunities. Certainly I will." And literally the day we recorded the cast album, I like to think there's a little extra excitement in my voice on the recordings because I walked straight from the recording studio in Times Square over to a place called BB King's on 42nd Street that now doesn't even exist anymore, and watched Freddie play for an hour and a half thinking he's very good at this. I wonder if we'll have anything to talk about. And it was the best blind date of my life. And 6 months later, I was living in this house here with him, and I was pregnant with our first little boy. So we have 2 little boys now, and we call them our beautiful babies because they only exist because they're beautiful, the Carole King musical. And so for the past few years, I've really been mostly at home with my boys and enjoying this chapter of my life. I do like concerts here and there, benefits here and there, and workshops and stuff here and there. But about a year and a half ago, I did my first of like 3 or 4 workshops of a new musical called Almost Famous, the musical based on the movie Almost Famous. It's really more for high school kids and over, I think, in terms of appropriateness. But yes, I get to. Frances McDormand played the role in the movie, and I get to play the role in the musical. And I think it's the best role of my career, and I'm really excited to get back to it.
Anika, I saw your Stars in the House performance, and it's funny. I did not know the movie. I just somehow missed the movie growing up and didn't see it. And I saw your performance, and when you sang that song, "He Knows Too Little, I Know Too Much," is that or what? I'm not sure what the name of that.
Exactly right. Yep.
It stopped me. I got emotional watching it. Saw the movie that night with my boyfriend. Showed him your clip of singing it, and I'm telling you, I cannot wait for not only my students to hear you in the show, to see the show when it becomes available to when it lives on in our world.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, you in your home sitting, in your by your piano.
Oh, good.
I mean, the emotion that you brought just through the screen, I cannot wait.
Oh, good, because it's so awkward. Those things. I mean, these things right now, it's so awkward. I want so badly to have humans in the room with me.
Sure.
We're all better off when we have humans in the room with us. That's why we go to the theater, right? I have a friend who is a director who says we go to the theater to know we're not alone. It's to see ourselves up on that stage, our struggles, our pain, our joys up on that stage. And we like to do it in communion with others. And it's real hard not to. And so, yeah, it's going to Broadway. It was supposed to go in the fall. Maybe it will still go in the fall. Nobody really knows what's going to happen with large gatherings, how soon we can do that. It will happen. For sure, it will happen, and it will be the next big thing that I do. But, yeah, I'm trying to manage my emotions in terms of, like, getting my hopes up. And will we open in November? I don't know. But we will open someday. And I played mom, so I won't age out of the character.
It's going to be an anthem for moms. I'm telling you. It's that song.
Oh, that's why it's, I mean, the emotions, it's like, I don't have to work. It's playing the mom of the son and having my 2 sons. I wouldn't have been able to do it as well 6 years ago. I just wouldn't. I literally have to say the words, sing the words, and get out of the way. And it's so well written. Tom Kitt and Cameron Crowe. Tom Kitt wrote the music. Cameron Crowe co-wrote the lyrics with him. And Cameron Crowe wrote the book, of course. He wrote the movie, he directed the movie.
Is it about his life?
It is. It's a true story. It's a crazy true story. He was a prodigy thanks to his mom. He was just a really smart kid and loved rock and roll music, although she was not excited about that part of it. She thought rock and roll music was like candy. It was not nourishing. It was a cheap sugar high. But he wrote for all of these underground rock papers, rock magazines, when he was like a teenager. And so when he was 15, Rolling Stone magazine, because there was no internet to figure out who somebody was and see a picture of them, they called him up not knowing how young he was. And they were like, do you want to go out on tour with this rock band? It was in real life the Allman Brothers, if you know who they are, but in the movie and the play, it's a fake band called Stillwater. Do you want to go out on tour with this band? And so suddenly he's thrown into this world of sex, drugs, rock and roll, and he's young and his mom's freaking out at home about it. But yeah, it's all a true story, and clearly was a pivotal moment in his life because he wrote a movie about it and then a musical about it. So yeah, so it's very exciting. It's gonna be very good. And you know what? It's gonna be what people are ready to aching to see, because it's so much about being alone and lonely and isolated, and then finding your tribe, finding your community, finding your family. It's about family and people who love music together. And there's a song in it that's called "Everybody's Coming Together." And when everybody wants to come together again, don't we? And everybody's coming together. Oh, we're all going to be singing it and feeling it and living it. It's going to be great.
Oh, that's going to be amazing. It will definitely be our anthem that we will need.
I think so.
For sure.
Yeah.
I love that. I love that. Your path and your story are fantastic.
Well, thank you. Thank you. Well, everybody has a different way to get, like when people say, how do you get to Broadway? It's like, how do you get to Carnegie Hall? Practice, practice, practice. Like, it's the only thing I can tell you, practice. But other than that, there's no straight path. There's no way to do it that's better than any other. The one thing I do know, my high school drama teacher said to me, not just to me, to everybody he was teaching, but he said, if you have the talent, you will work. It may take 10 years, but you will work. Yeah. And that was so, I think maybe that alone might be the reason I had the guts to try, is
Wow.
because that was so heartening. And I think it's true. It's not like you hear about like lucky breaks and, Charlize Theron was like in a bank and somebody thought she was pretty and said, you should be in movies. And maybe that's how it works in LA. I don't know. I can't really speak to TV and film. That's not what I do. But in New York City, if you want to work in the theater, if you want to be rich and famous, I don't know. I can't help you. If you want to be rich and famous, honestly, don't do theater. But if you want to live and work in the theater,
Yeah.
because you love it and you believe in it, then if you have the talent, and I would also qualify it with, if you have the talent and a strong work ethic and you're great to work with, you will work. And that's something so lovely to know, that you don't have to have magic, or you don't have to know somebody to help you, or, it's just like, come to the city or wherever you want to do theater and just keep auditioning and you will work.
Yeah, that's such great advice. It's so true. It's so true. I love that. I love that. We have to say real quick with your career, of course, you also were in Avenue Q.
Yes.
Do that show, which I bet that was just an absolute blast.
I mean, I grew up obsessed with Sesame Street and the Muppets, and then to get to learn that and to learn it from Muppet people, like Sesame Street people, like the man who taught me puppetry is Peter Linz. And did you guys see the movie? If anybody saw that movie, God, what's the actor's name? But the latest Muppet movie with, I think it was Amy Adams in it, and the tall guy on How I Met Your Mother, that one.
Yeah.
There's the yellow guy, Walter, who's the like main puppet in it.
Yes.
Peter Linz was him. That's who I learned puppetry from. And I got paid to learn from him. God. That was my job, was getting to learn how to do it from him. I don't know if you guys heard about just recently, they did Elmo Has a Play Date on PBS Kids. So because they wanted everybody. So there's a picture of him in the New York Times, I'm trying to fit in here, where he's puppeteering Ernie. So if you're sure that's what you want to do, and you have to audition for those programs. So if you can get in, that means you're pretty fantastic. If you can do that, then that's pretty great. They can be brutal. They can be really hard. They can be very hard on kids and very sort of, I've heard lots of stories of unkindness, but I hope that's changing. Because like I said, like the business itself is not unkind. It doesn't seem to me like there's ever a need for anyone in this to be unkind, because it's a play. It's called a play because we play. It's not the Pentagon. Nobody on a Broadway show, nothing we do in a Broadway theater affects world policy. Like the stakes are just not that high. Not that it doesn't matter, because I believe very wholeheartedly that the arts are critical, vital to a healthy society. But each individual show, each individual performance, each individual audition, none of them matter that much. There will always be another one. So I'm very big on tangents when I start talking about this stuff. I often go off into, but so those are your sort of first two big choices, is which kind of program, and you can apply to all of them, right? And then see what feels the most right and see what you get into. And then I think the other things you want to be taking into account are how close to home you want to be. I think that's a big deal. Finances are a big deal, of course. You want to stay in a state school. There's so many great state schools that have great. I taught for a year at SUNY New Paltz here in New York. And their program, they're still a regular liberal arts school, but their theater major, those kids leave with, I'm astonished with they leave with having had a class about the business of theater, and they all have their headshots and resumes and their books all set. So there are some programs that are, better off than others. My program at Yale was a lot more, it was called Theater Studies, and it was a lot more about studying theater and not so much about like making you an actor who will work in the world. So it's really so individual. That was a very general answer. Did it give you any insights?
Oh, it gave me plenty of insights. Thank you.
Great.
I love it. I
think you can't go wrong. Like it might feel like, oh, this is a huge decision, and if I pick the wrong school, my life will end and I will never get where I want to go. And really, honestly, there's almost any college, like every college, really, if it's an accredited, legitimate college, will give you the education that you need if you make of it. If you pursue, if you work really hard, if you make theater happen. In all colleges, you can direct your own show. You can find somebody to direct you in the show you want to be in. You can always do student-led productions. So you make of your education a whole lot of what it ends up being for you. So just I think maybe take some air out of the tires in terms of the pressure on you to get that decision right. And also just sort of trust that, you'll apply to a bunch of places, and the one that's meant for you will be the one that's meant for you. You'll know. You'll trust your gut. I always think, take a deep breath, and think like, what is my gut telling me? Imagine all the scenarios and which one feels the most right. And then that's the decision to make. And then no regrets, because it was what felt the most right with your most educated ability to decide.
That's brilliant. Brilliant. I love it. I love it. By the way, Ruthie Fearberg, she's a friend of mine from Playbill. She says, it's Jason Segel from the Muppet movie.
Exactly.
Thanks, Ruthie. We couldn't think of that. I love it. And randomly, Tom Allison. Hi, Anika. Long time no see.
Oh my God. We did Rent together, right? On tour?
I love that. I love that. I believe I'm Facebook friends with Tom from a long time ago. I love that. I love that. Our next kid we're going to bring in is Caden Burns. Caden is a senior in our Academy program. Caden, Anika.
Hi. So nice to meet you. My question is, did you have any idols in the Broadway community that you just idoled growing up?
Sure. Bernadette Peters in the 80s. Huge. I mean, she was in all the Sondheim musicals, right? And that's my only regret so far in my life is that I've never been in a Sondheim musical. And I would do any of it. He writes such great women that I would do any of those roles. And then Patti LuPone was so huge when I was growing. I mean, they both still are, but and yeah, Bernadette Peters was at opening night of Beautiful, and I have a picture of me with her backstage, and it's just one of those like, is this real life moments? Like, if I knew this, like if I knew this day was going to come when I was 14, my head would have popped off. So it's good I didn't find out, because then I wouldn't have been able to pursue theater with no head. But yeah, I've been pretty lucky that way.
That's great.
I love that. I love that. I'm going to bring up one of our comment questions here. This is from one of our alumni. Hi, Anika, odd question, but what is the Broadway sleep schedule like? I find myself staying up later and later the longer I've done theater, especially in college. Haha, and I was curious if that rings true in the professional world as well.
Yeah, well, absolutely. We work nights, right? So if you're done working at 11, I mean, usually 10:30, 10:45, but if you finish working at, let's say, 11, then that's your 5 o'clock, you know, what other people's 5 o'clocks in terms of what their bodies are. You've been up, you've been revved until 11. You're not going to get to sleep by midnight. You're not even going to get home by midnight necessarily, depending on where you live. So, yes, so all of us are, yes, used to staying up later and sleeping later. And fortunately, they don't really generally schedule stuff for actors before 10 o'clock. If they do, we're very grouchy about it. But rehearsals never start before 10. Yeah, and that's what makes it challenging to have 2 children who wake up at 7.
Yeah, I can't imagine.
They don't care about my Broadway schedule. They could care less that Mama's in tech rehearsal. 6:30, I'm ready to play. But yes, and actors are very serious about getting enough sleep, because we all know, like, the things we can control in terms of our vocal health, right? Like, you can't really control whether somebody gives you a cold or not. But what we can control is how much sleep we get, how hydrated we are, that we get regular exercise, and that we don't drink alcohol in excess. Especially if we're in a role that's taxing, that we're none of us stupid enough to smoke or vape. I hope none of you are that dumb, or do drugs. It's just, you really have to have a healthy body to be able to do 8 shows a week. Yeah, and people ask a lot, like, how do you get through 8 shows a week? And I always sort of say, well, but if you ran a mile 8 times a week, fairly soon it would be pretty easy to run a mile. So it gets in your body. And then after you've been doing a show for a long time, you don't have to be quite so stringent about those things. But when you're first doing it, you know, like the first, like during tech and previews and just after opening, I think all of us are much more careful about any of that. And, you know, like, even if you go out to a loud restaurant or bar with friends and you don't drink because you know you have to be careful, but then you have to yell really loud to be heard. We just don't do that during those times. You just can't risk your voice for that.
Sure.
It's your career. You just have to be smart. So
that's hard. Okay, our next question is probably from our biggest, our student that is the biggest fan of both you and the musical Beautiful. This is Abigail Martin.
Hi, Abigail. How are you?
Nice to meet you.
You too.
My question's kind of a 2-parter, but I was wondering if you could kind of talk about like what the audition process or like the beginning stages were like for Beautiful, and also what would be some of your biggest advice that you'd give to someone looking to pursue the professional audition route?
Sure. I think a lot of my advice I've already said and kind of lace into all of my other answers, but I'll talk about sort of auditions in general. And like I said, audition for everything and anything you can. Uh, Beautiful for me was different. I mean, I was in my mid-30s when it first came my way. I got asked to do a reading of it, just like it's like a developmental workshop of it. And so I did an audition for it, and then there was another one and another one, and then there was a fourth one, and they recast me. And so, like we often do with disappointments in this business, you have to find a place of zen, a coping mechanism for you that helps you to get through disappointment and loss. So I let it go. And then my agent called and said, the show is finally going to Broadway. They want you to come to final callbacks. And I was sort of bummed because it's like, what are they going to learn in 5 minutes of me in that room that they didn't learn in all the weeks that we worked together making the show? They know me. They know who I am. They know what I do. So I went in and I auditioned and was sure I didn't get it. And then on the ride home, I was so sad at the thought of losing this part that I had worked so hard to help create and that I knew would have been so great for my career, that I just thought, all right, I can't keep doing this. It's time to quit the business. I was 39 and I had always wanted a family, and there was no husband in sight and no babies in sight. And I was just tired I had made very little money the year before. And I was just tired of, it just feels sometimes like a masochistic way to live. And I was thought, okay, well, maybe this isn't for me. Maybe my streak of luck has run out. And maybe I think I just need to, at my age, I need to get a normal people job, whatever that was, and have a salary I didn't have to worry about losing or worry about my health insurance. And so I cried all night. And then I woke up the next morning on a new page, just so ready to like, okay, today I'm going to figure out what that normal people job is. And I'm going to start this new chapter. And maybe someday I'll go back to theater. But this new chapter of my life will begin when I am going to have a regular job and I'm going to have a baby on my own. And then my agent called and he said, you got it. And I said, I got what? Because I had so moved on in my brain, blocked it out. I just so shoved it into the back of my brain because it hurt too much that I had forgotten I auditioned for it the day before. And he said, you got beautiful. And he said, it's going to San Francisco and then it's going to Broadway. And I said, so I got San Francisco, but they can replace me for Broadway? And he said, no, it's all one contract. Why are you being so negative? And then just flood of tears, like tears and snot, just hysteria. Called my parents. They couldn't understand. They were like, it's a good thing. You got beautiful. It's a good thing. Because I was sobbing so hard. My best friend April for years had a voicemail on her phone for me that is unintelligible. You can't understand what I'm saying because it's sobbing. And then it led to, as I told you guys, all of these great things for my career and my finances, and then to my husband and my babies. And it sort of turned my life around. So that's a very dramatic answer to how the audition process went for Beautiful. But auditions in general don't usually go like that. If you're early career and you need to go to open calls, then usually you show up and they want to hear something that's yours. They want to hear a piece that's yours. Let's just assume we're talking musical theater because that's mostly what I do. Because they're sifting through so many people, it's always at an open call, way more people than they can handle in a day. You never get to sing a full song. They'll ask you to sing 32 bars or 6 bars, or even one time I was asked to sing 8 bars. And I was like, all right, I'll sing 8 bars. That's like half a sentence. Yeah, so you'll come in and you give your, it's always in a rehearsal studio. I see in movies and TV and stuff, sometimes they audition on Broadway stages or just stages. And I've never once auditioned in 25 years. I've never auditioned on a stage anywhere. It's always in a rehearsal studio in what looks like an office building in Midtown Manhattan. And so you walk your name gets called and you walk in and you bring your book over to the accompanist and you give it to them and you talk to him about what your cut is, what your 8 or 16 or 32 bars are going to be, and you agree on tempo, and you go to the middle of the room and you introduce yourself, or they'll have introduced you, and then you sing, and then you hope they want more from you, because if they like you, they want to hear more. So they might hear another song, or they might want you to do something that they have right there, or that they asked you to prepare from their show. So you might sing a song from their show, a clip, like a snippet of a song from their show, or a scene from the play. And then the longer they keep you in the room, the better off you are. And then sometimes right there, they'll say, we'd like to call you back, or sometimes they call you later, or sometimes you don't ever hear from them again. And then callbacks are just sort of repeating. Callbacks generally are always their material and not your material. And like for the musical Rent, I think I had 6 or 7 callbacks. They were sort of infamous for having a ton of callbacks. Usually it's not that many, but sometimes. And then sort of the further along you get in your career, well, then you get an agent who then gets you the appointment. And if you have an agent, generally you don't go to the first round of auditions where they're just sort of weeding people out, because by that point in your career, usually the casting directors know who you are. And so you get to sort of join the callback level. At this point in my career, because I've been around so long and people tend to know me well enough, that often, most of the time, I'll make it to final callbacks, which just means like the actual director and producers and writers are in the room. But it's all the same thing. As you walk in, you say hi, you do your stuff, and you leave, and you hope that they want to hear more from you. Does that answer your question? Does that answer
Yeah.
Yeah.
of like what auditions are like?
Yeah, that covered it all.
Brilliant. That's awesome. And I know we have about 10 minutes left, so I'm gonna try to go quickly through some of these comments and questions. I think Jocelyn Graham, I'm gonna go ahead and unmute yourself, Jocelyn. I think you're muted.
Hello.
Hi,
How are you?
I'm great. You?
Good. I'm great. Okay, so my question is, was bringing Cynthia to life difficult because it's a real person, or was it easier to like pull from like?
Yeah, look at you, Jason. You're unbelievable. That's Cynthia Weil and me. Oh, I love that picture. I think that picture was taken on my phone. Anyway, doesn't matter. That's a great question. Well, so I had it easier than Jessie Mueller, who was playing Carole King, because way more people know. Everybody knows who Carole King is if they're coming to that show, but like way more people know who she is, what she's like, and how she sounds. But there's not really a whole lot of video out there, and Cynthia Weil doesn't sing. So I didn't have to worry about sounding like her or being like her. And especially like that Cynthia Weil is Cynthia Weil today or 5 years ago. But I was playing Cynthia Weil in the 60s. And so I was desperate to find video of her back then. And there just really wasn't any. I could see pictures of her back then, and she was very stylish, which meant I had fabulous costumes. But so I didn't have to worry about, or not even worry about, I just didn't have to think about, because it would have been a fun challenge to think about how does she talk? How does she move? To be like, look at you. You are unbelievable. We have to work together in the future. Yep, those are all my costumes, not all of them, some of them. So ultimately, at the end of the day, I did, of course, a lot of research on her to find out what I could about her. But I think in theater, for the most part, you're cast as a character because the essence of you is the essence of that character. I mean, like the actor Daniel Day-Lewis is somebody I always think of who's like totally transforms himself for each part and is so completely different. And he can do that because people know who he is and he's so famous and he's so talented that like people just trust him as something so outside the box for him. But I think generally it's like, no, the essence of Anika is the essence of Cynthia Weil. So they didn't want me to really do anything sort of crazy or different to be my version of Cynthia Weil. So at the end of the day, after sort of doing all of the research that I did to sort of know as much as I could about her, I let that be in me and in my brain and something I knew. And then I just played her as if she was the character on the page, because like as if she was the character in the play who was the character Cynthia Weil. Because even if the 2.5 hour play, even if it was literally only one person on stage talking about themselves for 2.5 hours, you still can't understand a whole human being in 2.5 hours. So if there's a bunch of characters you need to learn about in one play, you can't learn everything about all of the three-dimensionality of Cynthia Weil. So you have to distill her into an essence of Cynthia Weil. And so I was playing that essence of Cynthia Weil, which of course, if you know Cynthia Weil, leaves out so much about her. It's so funny because I just had the moment of realizing that this chair that I'm sitting on is a rocking chair. It's one of those glider chairs to rock a baby. I got pregnant while I was doing Beautiful. And Cynthia Weil was the first person after my mother to buy a present for us off of the baby registry, and it was this chair. So it's fun to talk about her in this chair.
That's so cool.
Yeah, she bought us, and a big ticket item too. She didn't. She said, because she wrote rock and roll music, so she said, think of me when you rock and roll your baby. Cynthia. But yeah, so then I just really played the Cynthia Weil that is in the musical beautiful.
Yeah.
So that at the end of the day, I just was sort of approaching it as another character. And she had casting approval. All four of the lead characters were real people who were still alive and could give. So they all got to approve the people that they wanted to play them. So I knew that because I had the job, she liked the way I was doing it. So I never had to really worry too much. And she was so loving and sweet, and we're still in touch. And I just think she's wonderful.
I love that. I love that. Thanks, Jocelyn, for that great question. Next up, Chloe Spellman, one of our senior actors.
Hi, Chloe.
Hi. Okay, so my question is, what was one of your biggest challenges you faced on your journey, and how did it affect your future?
It's always so hard because you're like, that's such a big question, and what's the best answer? Yeah. And I always think at times like that, just the first thing that comes to your mind, just that's the answer you should give. One time I had a particularly bad audition, and I got in the subway on the way home, and I looked across at me, and there was a guy wearing scrubs, like medical scrubs, and I just burst into tears. Hello.
My cat wants to say hello.
Sure. I saw his scrubs and I burst into tears because I thought, you know what you're doing tomorrow, next week, next month, next year, 10 years from now. And I don't have any idea what I'm doing any of those times. And I'll never know what I have opted for a life of uncertainty. And I am somebody who does not like uncertainty. I like planning. I usually have it right by my side. I don't with me, but I have a day runner. I don't want to do my calendar on the computer or my phone. I want to hold it in my hand and write in every day in pencil so I can erase it because I don't like scratch marks, cross something out. I love planning. And I can't plan. And so it's something that I'm constantly reckoning with, is just how I'm able to cope with that. People, I think, really think like the most important thing to having a career in theater is talent. And I think, no, we're dealt a hand in life, like you're playing poker, and you need that talent card in your hand. But you also need, like I said earlier, the work ethic card. You also need the ability to play well with others card. And you need the card that is like, you have to have the mental constitution for it. You have to be able to find your way to deal with all of the stuff that's really emotionally hard, whether it's the rejection or the uncertainty or all the disappointments like we're all dealing with right now. I think I said before, like I'm starting to have to, like Almost Famous was supposed to open in November. And I'm already starting to prepare myself emotionally for the idea that it's maybe not going to happen in November. Just can't know, but it will happen someday. I know it will. They've got the financing already. Like it's certain it's all ready to, but it may not happen till next spring. Who knows when it'll happen? And so sort of being able to find your coping mechanisms, your defense mechanisms, your way to breathe through it, your way to find perspective and balance outside of your career, that is so crucial. I mean, my kids right now give me such perspective, right? Of like what's important, because at the end of the day, they're the most important. So I audition for something and I don't book it, and I'm like, but I get to go play with them, and they think I'm amazing. They think I hung. They would not understand that somebody else could have been better than mommy at doing something. So that's helpful in terms of, but so for all of us, I think sometimes it's just to take the step back, make sure you maintain relationships with people outside of the business, because they can give you perspective and help. You know, if you have somebody in your family or a roommate or a friend who's like, oh, you didn't get the show that you wanted, you didn't get the musical part you wanted to do. Well, I kept a family from being evicted today. So that's what I did with my day. That's all very helpful.
Yeah.
Not that your pain isn't real and valid,
Right.
but sometimes it's nice to remember.
I love it.
And there will always be another one. I said it before. I think I said it before. There will always be another audition. There will
always be another audition for sure. Anika, if you don't mind, we're going to go lightning round because I know we're hitting our mark. But real quick, we're going to get just our last couple people in. Let me get. Oh my gosh, where is she? There she is.
Shorter answers. My answers are so long. I know
no, they're brilliant. They're jewels. We're just all these little treasures. But yeah, so I'm gonna
only yes or no answers from here on out.
I love it. Austin.
Hi. So my question is, you talked about this a little bit, but in the past, when you didn't get casted or you didn't get a part that you hoped for, what is that one thing that motivated you to keep auditioning and just keep pursuing theater?
Honestly, I just didn't ever feel like I had another option. It's like a fire within you. It's like the thing you want to do that you're meant to do. And so if it really is the thing you're meant to do, setbacks don't stop you. They just don't. And if there's a setback that makes you think, I don't know how to motivate, I don't know how to get up and go and do it again, then maybe it's not for you. Or maybe you just need a day to cry and whine and eat food that's bad for you and watch stupid TV and then get back on the horse. But
and it sounded like you had a great support. You had a great support group, it sounded like.
Yeah. I mean, they help you get through it too. But those times are all manageable if it really is what you're meant to be doing, then you'll keep doing it. Also, there's so many people. There's thousands and thousands of people in New York City who help to make the theater go, who you've never heard of, you'll never see. They work in offices. They work, they're press people, marketing people, they're producers, they're the assistants, the producers. There's just thousands of people. They work with smaller theater companies. They work with Broadway stuff, and agents, managers, just thousands of people who are crucial to making this happen that aren't on stage. The backstage crew, of course, house management, stage management. I think a lot of people come to the city thinking that they're going to be performers and then end up sort of going, this isn't for me. Either they didn't have the talent or they just have a constitution. Either way, but then they somehow get funneled into actually, I absolutely have a friend who did All Shook Up with me, and now she's an agent because she was like, I just want to keep doing this, and I'm really good at negotiating for my friends, so I'm going to be an agent now. So I often think of life as a river, and you're in your boat and you have oars and you do have some control. You can steer yourself a little bit. That river's going to take you where that river's going to take you. And so you might think it's going to bend this way, and then it bends this way, and it's actually just as beautiful as the place you thought you were going to go.
Oh, that's beautiful. That's beautiful. I love that. This is Zoe Parrish.
Hi. Okay, so my question was, do you feel that your college experience was necessary for your success?
Yes, absolutely. I think everyone should go to college if it's an option for you. Absolutely.
I love that. I love that.
Thank you.
My shortest answer of the day. I'm so proud.
That was perfect. One of our students, Cameron, says, what is the hardest part of the Broadway experience?
I feel like I said all of those things. It's the uncertainty, it's the rejection, it's but all of it, honestly, all of it is like, cry me a river. We get to do the thing we love most in the world for our job. And at the end of my workday, people clap for me. And so you'll never hear me complain too much, no matter how tired I am, or I don't feel good, or I'm grouchy, or I'm having problems with somebody. We all know, you pull it together and you give the best show that you can every night.
I love that. Mabry asks, do you have any dream roles?
No, I don't. My favorite thing is creating new roles. So my dream roles are the ones that haven't been done yet. And Sondheim. If somebody hired me to do Sondheim.
We love Almost Famous. Almost Famous.
That's my dream role.
All our Academy students are going to be talking about now is Almost Famous. I can't wait. One of our instructors, how do you approach creating a character for a musical?
I feel like I did that a little bit too in terms of talking about,
and then I know we didn't get to cover a lot. You, of course, have an amazing theater company that you've created. The Jarodoa, is that how you pronounce it?
Jarodoa. Unfortunately, it's not. It's very hard to. We didn't have a development director, which is a person whose sole job is to raise money. So we just couldn't keep it going because we just couldn't afford even the one employee that we had. But for 4 years, we used theater to serve the community. We went into New York City public schools and we used theater to help kids learn to read. We took radio plays we did radio plays for the elderly in old folks' homes, and it was basically about finding ways for theater people to serve the community when our schedules are so erratic and it's so hard to plan. And it was just ways that you could do it where if you couldn't show up at the last minute, we had you covered. And so theater people are that's why I'm doing this. It's like we all have the desire I think you're sort of naturally empathetic if you're a person who performs. And so my heart really went out to all the people who are struggling and suffering right now, and all the people who are working so hard right now. And I just thought, well, what can I do to help? Well, you do the thing that you know how to do best. Sure. And we'll all plug all the holes in the dam by doing the thing that we specifically do. And I thought, well, I can at least help with everybody out there whose shows were canceled, or the teachers who are trying to teach theater remotely. How do you do that? It's so hard. Well, at least I can shed a little insight about a life in the theater to people.
I love that. We have 2 more questions. Maddie says, biggest tip for an actor transitioning from college into the professional world? Maddie's one of our alumni.
I feel like I covered a lot of that, but I do
You
think
feel like agents are important?
yeah, agents are harder to get the jobs though. Like it's also hard. You sort of, in terms of an agent, you need to be seen, and so that if you can do a mailing and send your stuff, your headshot and resume to all the agents. I've never really heard about that bearing fruit. They need to see you in something. So,
Yeah.
and that's why I was doing a workshop of a show, and one of the women in the show had an agent. She said, "I'll tell my agent you're looking for representation," and he was interested in me, and he signed me, and he's been my agent ever since. It's been over
Wow.
20 years. So it's really like you just need to be doing stuff in the city, even stuff that doesn't pay. That was something that wasn't a real big production that didn't pay, but he happened to be there because of this other woman who was in the show. But yeah, of course, eventually you're going to get an agent. Eventually, everybody has an agent who's working.
Sure.
And yes, they're very helpful and make life much easier.
Sure. Last question is from one of our younger students. This is Taylor Paige Henderson, and Taylor, go ahead and unmute your mic. There you go. And I brought her in because I wanted you to give her maybe some advice. She was in a unique position. Taylor is one of our students who she booked. She was about to be in The Bedwetter in off Broadway there with Stephanie J. Block and stuff like that. She went up to New York, and then this all happened on a hold.
Wow.
Taylor, I know you have a quick question for her.
Yeah. What would be your advice for handling disappointment? Like, because all of this is happening, what would be your advice?
Yeah. Well, first of all, like, let yourself feel it. It's so okay to be super bummed. That's a real bummer. I really do think that show is going to happen. It's going to come back, and not all shows are gonna. So I think that's nice to know, is I think that is pretty much guaranteed that's going to happen eventually. So that's exciting. And then, yeah, it's like what I said before, is to remember that, this is part of it. It's always going to be part of it, but that there's always another opportunity around the corner. And like I said, I think this one's going to happen, but there's always something else to do. And there's also always another way to feed the need to do theater and enjoy theater. It doesn't have to be a professional stage in New York. You can just get together with a couple of friends on Zoom, and you guys can all read a play out loud together with each other. Like, there's ways to perform for each other and with each other right now, and find those ways. Thank God for all of the technology that we have, right? Everybody's all talking about how in 1918, the last pandemic, how did anybody know what anyone else was doing in the world? They didn't. So at least, you can stay connected, and you can find ways to see theater, to watch theater, and to be doing it yourself and learning more about it.
Yeah.
I love that.
Thank
I love
you.
that. And honestly, Anika, you doing this for us today is helping our soul, and just feed our creative spirit. We really
I hope so.
appreciate it. And I know we went a little over time, but I really appreciate it. We didn't even get to talk about your show, Shafrika. Is that
Wow, yes, that's a whole other story. There she is. There's Shafrika. Yeah.
your time in Godspell? I had that ready.
Oh, there's Kelly and Julie. Yeah.
And then, of course, we want to let everyone watching, all of our students, everyone watching, to go grab your album, Sing You to Sleep. That album is absolutely amazing. The theme that you picked for that was just fantastic. It's not like anyone else's, musical theater album out there. I think you really did a great job picking that theme and a niche that was needed on the market. So,
thank you so much.
I can definitely say from all of our Academy students, thank you so much for spending your Wednesday matinee time with us for this Q&A. We're going to go ahead and end the broadcast here. If you'll stay there, Anika, so I can say a proper thank you after as well. But all you Academy students, thank you guys so much for tuning in. Again, this was our Wednesday Q&A matinee with Anika Larsen. Yes, so thankful again, Anika. And make your plans now. We're already going to start planning to see Almost Famous. Whenever it comes, we will bring the kids. We will bring everyone out to support you.
I'll do a talk back for you guys. Come
all right. Fantastic. We heard it here. That'd be fantastic. We would love that. Academy students, keep doing great jobs. Keep sending us your videos for alternative learning. Look at that on our website. We have those monologues that we'd love to see you guys perform in. Don't forget, also, there's a challenge from Alan Shankles to do your best Alan Shankles impersonation before our Thursdays at 3 event tomorrow. And then tune into our Alternative Places concert this Friday at 7 o'clock, where the cast of Les Mis, our cast of Les Mis, is going to join together to do that concert. So tune in, and we will see you guys all at the theater hopefully soon, guys. We love you and miss you guys so much. We'll see you guys soon.